Alright, let's just shut everything down though so I don't leak something I shouldn't. Emails, go away. Alright. Let's go. So, announcing hero pools and updated to Overwatch League patching. So, obviously we'll talk about, for anyone that isn't aware, if you have been living in a rock for the day. Under a rock? Not in a rock. They just announced hero pools that are coming into Overwatch. So, what that means in the public game is that only in ranked, there is going to be a certain number of heroes that are banned per week, so that the game will be different every week. Obviously, this only exists in ranked, but it should theoretically, change the game and keep it fresh from week to week, which is going to be awesome. So let's see how. Let's see what they did with the league. As announced in the Overwatch developer update today, hero pools will premiere in the Overwatch competitive play during Season 21. The hero pool system will feature a weekly rotation of playable heroes intended to improve the quality of play, increase hero diversity, and strategy to matches. To reflect this overall change to the game, the Overwatch League is going to implement hero pools as well. Pogs in chat. Starting March 7th, the Overwatch League will make 1 tank, 1 support, and 2 damage heroes unavailable for selection during matches each weekend. Makes sense, there's more DPS characters than tanks and supports. Heroes will be randomly selected from a group of eligible heroes based on play rate data from previous 2 weeks of Overwatch League matches. Only heroes that are being played regularly can be pulled from the next hero pool. Okay. No hero will be unavailable 2 weeks in a row. Hero pools will not be used for mid-season tournaments, the play-in tournament, playoffs, and grand finals, so everything will be available. Sweet. Teams will be informed of each week's hero pool approximately 1 week in advance of matches. Well, that's different than what they told us. Okay, that's cool. I was trying to work out how it works with 2 weeks of playtime, but if most of the heroes were banned the week before, how do you use 2 weeks worth of data? Right? Like, and the something that's pretty vague about this is how many heroes will be selected over a group. And like, does that mean like 8 heroes will be put into the pool based on eligible data, and then it's gonna be fucking 4 random ones? Because if so, I want to do a segment on like post watch point on the Sunday where we pull a lottery ball out with heroes that can be eligible to be banned, and we would be like, and this week the support character is Lucio. Get owned. Our expectation is that this rotating hero pool for Overwatch League matches will foster a wider range of team strategies and showcase more heroes in competition as players adapt and teams experiment with new compositions when some of the most played heroes are no longer options. Overwatch League patching and game updates. In January, we deployed several quick patch updates to the game, including, for the first time, balance updates to the live patch. We wanted to give Overwatch League fans some visibility to show how future patch updates will be integrated into pro play. Our overall goal is to balance heroes to move balance updates as quickly as we can from live game to Overwatch League matches. Whenever the live game receives a new patch, Overwatch League will begin playing on the match 2 weekends later. So that gives teams 2 weeks to sort of like work out the patch. Any mid-patch updates to the game that go into effect a match weekend will be deployed for Overwatch League matches the following weekend. Okay, so like mid-season patches. I assume that's sort of what they mean with what happened recently with this patch. They came in with the patch, and then they sort of like did 1.441, right? Where they sort of like added some things, but then they ended up pulling back on a couple of things. So I think, but that was more of like, it was a patch, but it was sort of like integrated in to the current thing. Please note that the hero pool patching update forms can be revised at any point during the season. We'll listen closely to the fans and players, learn from our collective experiences, consider adjustments, and test new strategies along the way. We can't wait for the 2020 season to get started, and we look forward to hearing the community's feedback. Alright, I'm a fan. I think this is good for the game. My initial thoughts as an analyst and someone who's going to be talking about the games is my life just got significantly easier, right? With that said, because there's going to be so much to talk about, so many things going on with that. With that said, as a player, this is going to be hard. The level of play is probably going to reduce because of how much they're changing the patches and also how often the characters are being changed and manipulated and that kind of stuff. Obviously, it's very hard to tell right now how it's going to affect the league and how much influence it's going to have over the meta. But you think it would be a big deal, especially if they're taking characters out that were the most prevalent in the past metas. How do you feel about only having a week for players and coaches to adapt to bans? So that is what I'm confused about here. Teams will be informed of each Weir's hero pool approximately 1 week in advance of matches. Does that mean that we find out? So let's say they find out how it's banned on Sunday night, and then they're expected to play on Saturday morning with those bans. Like, that would make the most sense. But then the problem that you have is you only have 5 days to practice. Okay? And with only 5 days to practice, that would potentially be okay. But you have the issue of players need a day off. Usually teams would be expected to take the Monday off, or at least a lighter day. You then also add the fact that a lot of players are going to be traveling this year, and that the practice setups is going to be a lot less available because of everything that's happening with the league. Is it going to make it harder? Is this change going to make it so that the Overwatch League feels more like ranked and it's going to be more generic playstyles that have less strategy? As an Navio, I have little interest with watching all the games if it comes down to who understands the meta the quickest. But the whole point of this is going to be that there is no such thing as a perfect meta. Because the game changes every week, there is not going to be something that is just significantly better than everything else. What you will see is teams playing to their strengths more often. You're going to have teams that have their own meta. Every team is going to have the strength of how they play the game and how they adjust the way they play the game given the characters that are banned, the hero pool of that week. Okay? So that's interesting. And that's fun, and I think it will be interesting to see how the teams adapt. How much chaos is going to exist when you just have these, massive changes happening from week to week. On top of that, you have to remember there is a massive advantage over certain hero pools when you're playing against a certain team. Like, I know if, let's say that one of the DPS teams, let's just use Season 2 for an example. Let's say you go into this season and you're playing against Shanghai, but Farah is not in the hero pool. Ding is obviously a little bummed and they can't play Farah. Let's say they use a lot of Farah in a lot of their comps, but then it's not available. So I think it's going to be really interesting to see how that actually has an effect. And I think it's going to create cool storylines for the season. And that's why I'm excited as someone who's going to be on the desk. I'm going to be analyzing these things. It's going to give us so much to talk about and break down each week based on how teams are playing and the heroes that are available. With the change not being made until March week 5 and teams not playing every week due to the homestands model, wouldn't this allow for more rest time? They can't designate a week to rest and then practice the heroes once announced? No. See, that's the thing is, with only 4 characters coming out of the game, that's not enough to be like, oh, there's no point in practicing. What will happen is that players will have to practice a wider variety of characters. One of my favorite things that this is going to do, it is going to take one-tricks out of the game. Okay, not in your ranked games. I'm sorry to say that Torb one-trick that is going to get banned once every 6 weeks, 7 weeks. He's still going to Torb one-trick. He's just not going to play that week. And that is one of the concerns that we had for the competitive play was when you say you can't play this character, I think you're going to see a lot more people just stop playing for that week rather than play something else, which is fine, which is good. It's probably not good for the game, but it's good for everyone else playing, right? Like, you don't want one-tricks that exist in the game. In Overwatch League, I'm a huge fan of it. I hate that people can play in the Overwatch League and they can only play one thing. They are very limited in how they can play. Everyone's going to have strengths, everyone's going to have weaknesses, but people that are they can really only do this. And if they have to play something else, then that too bad. And I think, if anything, what this is going to do is it might bring in more specialists, but it might also remove specialists. Because of how much the game is falling, maybe just having 6 players that work really well together, that aren't potentially the best in every character, but just work better together, is that going to work better than having an incredibly deep roster that can play such a wide array of characters? And it's like, hey, all right, let's go. Chips are on the Philadelphia Fusion. Doomfist is banned this week. You're on the bench. Like, everyone agrees and accepts that that's what's going to happen, right? So maybe that will happen with more people. I think hero bans will be much harder to prep for than hero rotations. Yeah, and that sort of becomes, I'm sure that was part of their argument. I think the issue that a lot of people bring up when you say hero protects and hero bans is there would be a meta of protects and bans, that the same thing would always be banned and protected, etc., etc., etc. I don't agree with that. I don't think that is how it would work, but I also don't have any proof that that's not how it would work. So a point that someone actually brought up against hero protects and bans, which I never actually thought about, was the reason protects and bans work so well in games like MOBAs and, you know, things like that, is they're always playing on the same map and they're always playing the same game mode. While in Overwatch, you can't ban and protect things when the map also changes and the game mode also changes every map. It becomes this it would be complete chaos, and I think it would lean more towards everyone just bans the same thing over again, because it's limiting the number of variables. So I think hero pools are going to be really good for the game, and I think it might not be the perfect implementation, but I really like that Blizzard is saying we're willing to work on this and we're willing to change this if we feel like it's not working, or if it's not having the intended or desired effect. They've said we will change the model. And that is an important note, because we can make as much theory crafting as we want. I personally would have preferred hero bans. I think like hero protects bans, whatever you want to do. But to me, it doesn't matter. They're making the right move to make the game more adaptable and more, so that these metas just aren't like ruining the game and one tricks are going out of the game. So I'm excited. I think it's going to be really cool. And I think Blizzard is willing to work with everybody on the end result. So if anything, I think it's going to definitely hype up these games moving forward. Like I know March 7th, those weekend of games is going to be hype. So